a couple of coffees, a gooey golden brown cheese toasty, and a decadent pastel de nata for breakfast for under $10 for a couple. I'll take that. I'm pretty sure that when you think of Europe's sunny coastlines, you'd probably think, nah, it's too expensive for us. But what if I told you that Portugal's Algarve region can give you the beaches, the wine, the sunsets for much less than the south of France or Italy's tourist hotspots? Welcome to Portimão. Turns out it's a cost-effective place to spend a week, and if you stay a month, the savings are even better. So stick around, we'll show you what it's going to cost for that week or month stay, plus my best tips for couples over 50. The Algarve's quite famous for big resorts and busy beaches, but Portimão, it feels different somehow. You still get the dramatic cliffs, the fresh seafood, the golden sand, but it still retains a Portuguese feel, and you don't have quite as big a crowds as you do in some of the other top spots along the Algarve. You'll find cafes, markets, a working marina, and enough locals that they still outnumber the tourists. We spent 2 weeks here exploring the town, the beaches, and the beautiful surrounding area. And honestly, it's a place we would happily return to. So let's get into it and have a look at the costs of a 1 week stay. Let's start with looking at some accommodation. So as usual in this series, we're going to price everything in US dollars. And remember, we don't choose accommodation because it's cheap. It has to be good value, clean, comfortable, and worth the price. For those of us who are happy with a comfortable bed, a good location, and a nice working shower, you'll find a range of budget accommodation, $35 to $45 a night. You can expect clean, comfortable rooms, more likely small apartments than hotels, which is even better. Having that little bit of space to spread out can really make a difference when you're staying for more than just a couple of days. But if hotel stays your thing, and you want somewhere that includes a breakfast and probably a really nice ocean view, then $75 to $90 a day should cover you very nicely. And finally, for those who want a few more facilities, you can step up into a roomier apartment that's got its own kitchen, maybe even a shared swimming pool, and gym facilities. There are plenty of options for this sort of accommodation in Portimão, and you'll pay between $45 and $80 a night, depending on the location in town that you're looking for. For our 2 weeks in Portimão, we probably spent a little bit over the budget we really needed to spend, but we were looking for somewhere that had a beautiful Portuguese feel to it, still in a great location, and plenty of facilities. What we found not only had that traditional feel, but was in a great location, far enough from the beach resorts, but close enough to the beach and the river. It had air conditioning, it had laundry facilities, and it had a fully equipped kitchen. It's in a small block of only 3 apartments, and has been recently and lovingly renovated. It's called Vida a Portuguesa, and the hosts were wonderful. We highly recommend it. For more information, check out the link in the description. Now let's move on from where to stay and have a look at what to eat. And you'll find that meals here are not just affordable, but they can actually be quite a special experience. Move away from the busy tourist area right on the beachfront, and you'll find plenty of nice little family-run eateries and takeaways. We found these options overall to be great value and some pretty good food. And when you're talking no more than $30 a couple for a nice meal and maybe a wine each or a beer, that's pretty good. Then we think that makes better than reasonable value. If you're looking to celebrate a special occasion or just like to try something a little more fancy, then you'll still find plenty of options for mid-range to high-range restaurants. $60 to $70 per couple will get you a really nice big dinner, wine or cocktails or beer in a very nice restaurant that's most likely got some ocean or river views. And finally, since there are so many great apartment options and pretty much all of them have kitchen facilities, shopping at local markets and grocery stores and cooking a few meals back at your room is a great way to save even more money. Around $60 a week is probably going to buy you plenty to make your own breakfast every day and even a couple of dinners. Things like bread, milk, cheese, eggs, chicken, and some vegetables, and not to forget that essential bottle of wine or two. And as far as the prices for your everyday essentials, coffee, don't expect to pay more than about $2. And there are coffee shops everywhere. Fancy a nice cold beer to help combat the sun? Once again, about $2, it's going to get you a half-litre glass of ice-cold local beer. And last but definitely not least, Portugal's famous custard tart the pastel de nata. There's some really good ones around town, and you should expect to pay no more than $1.50. Now let's look at your options for getting around town, which in Portimão is easy and budget friendly. Obviously the cheapest, and in most cases the best way to get around much of the town of Portimão is walking. The whole area through the middle of town and along the edge of the river is very flat. The only real hills that you're going to have to navigate are to get up to the top of the cliffs above the beaches, and even that's not a real big challenge. But that area down by the marina and along the river is really beautiful, and you'll probably spend most of your time just wandering around there. But if you've had a couple of extra cocktails with dinner up on the beachfront and you need to get back to your apartment, ride shares are cheap and readily available. And in that case, expect to pay maybe $4 to $7 for a trip. To explore more of the Algarve coast, there are plenty of options. You can use the train system, which will give you a good opportunity to move along to a few of the other important towns. But the ideal way to see the region is to rent a car for a couple of days. $35 to $50 a day. You get to explore at your own pace, get into the places that the public transport can't take you, and really make this experience your own. Take note though, that if your car rental includes overnight, while there are plenty of places to park for free around the town, the closer you get to the beach resort area, the more chance you're going to have to pay for your parking. There are so many places along the Algarve that make for a fantastic day trip. Whether you want to use public transport, ride shares, private drivers, or rent your own car, the one thing is sure, you will definitely want to explore more of the coast. You can also take part in organised day tours. For example, a boat trip to the Benadryl Caves and along the coast is a must for first-time visitors. For around $35 per person, you'll get to see this stunning coastline from a very different perspective. And speaking of special, head down to the marina, jump on a water taxi and head across the river to Ferragudo. The return water taxi is about $15 per person, but Ferragudo is a beautiful little fishing village directly across the river from Portimão. It's a place where you'll not only be able to wander through some of the most beautiful laneways in Portugal, but you'll also have access to really well-priced, magnificent fresh seafood straight off the trawler, and you'll find some beaches that are just as pretty but far quieter than those back across at Portimão's resort section. While you're over in Ferragudo, expect to pay about $40 per couple for an extremely impressive seafood dinner with a drink or two. So what's all that work out to? A week in Portimão for two, $600 to $800. And those prices depend on your preferred style of accommodation and whether you're happy to cook a meal or two for yourself. Staying longer can cut costs fast. A lot of apartments will offer monthly discounted rates, which means you should be able to find a modern apartment with sea views for around $1,300 to $1,600 for a month. That's around $50 a night. Cooking a few meals at home and spreading out the sightseeing costs reduce that daily average even more. Overall, we feel that a couple can stay here for a full month from $2,200 to $2,500, and that price would include the type of accommodation we just mentioned, at least half a dozen nice dining experiences, and a dozen or so at those cheaper family-run places, and enough groceries to cover the rest of your dining requirements. That price would also include your basic transportation costs and maybe a couple of days of car hire. And while we did have a car for the whole 2 weeks of our stay, I wouldn't recommend that you have a car for your entire stay. It's no more expensive, in fact it may even be cheaper, to just hire the car daily whenever you want to go and visit one of the other places along the Algarve. Plus, you don't have the hassle of trying to find somewhere to park overnight. In the end, it comes down to one question: is Portimão a good option for couples over 50? Let's take a look. It's flat and walkable. Portugal is considered one of the safest countries in Europe. It has very good quality healthcare and plenty of pharmacies available, and evenings in particular are magnificent here. Fresh grilled sardines, a stroll along the edge of the river or along the beach promenade, and you'll even find some pretty active nightlife for those of us who still like to relive our glory days. What about some tips and some ideas on saving money? The best time to visit Portimão in the Algarve is May to June or September, October. That way you avoid the summer peak seasons and you still get to experience some fantastic beach weather. Next tip, you really don't need to spend the extra money to stay on the beach. Stay a block back or further into town and you can save good money on your accommodation and still be close enough to wander down to the beach to experience the sunsets. Not only will that accommodation be cheaper, but it's going to be quieter. And the third tip, shop at Mercado Municipal for fresh seafood and produce at the lowest prices, not tourist prices. So what do we got? 1 week in Portimão, $600 to $800 per couple. Stay for a whole month, maybe $2,400. And while it's definitely more expensive than staying through Southeast Asia or Central South America, for Europe, that represents excellent value for such a beautiful place. And there's no doubt that Portugal's Algarve is one of the most spectacular parts of Europe. For couples over 50, it's safe, it's comfortable, and it's an easy place to enjoy. We've definitely got the Algarve on our places to return list. And if you'd like more information about that cost difference between Southeast Asia, Mexico, and Europe, this is the third in our series of cost breakdowns for places to stay for a month. To find out more, look at our videos on Hoi An, Vietnam and Querétaro, Mexico. If you like this type of information, there will be more to come, so hit subscribe for more real numbers behind the destination. And if you've been to Portimão, share your favourite cafe or seafood restaurant in the comments. It helps out our fellow travellers and it gives us places to look for next time we go. Anyway, enough for today. I think I've got some pastel donatas in the freezer I might heat up.